That watch. Where did you get it?
It's mine. I bought it.
Don't lie to me. People like you don't buy watches like that.
People like me? This is about my skin, not the watch.
Officer Victor Hale thought the badge on his chest gave him the right to decide who belonged among chandeliers, champagne, and rich donors. At the Carlton Grand Charity Gala, he spotted a black woman with a diamond watch on her wrist and decided humiliation would prove she had no place there. But before the night was over, he would learn she owned the bank funding the entire city. It was the kind of lesson that arrives slowly, then all at once, and by the time it lands, nobody in the room can pretend they did not see it. The Carlton Grand was the kind of hotel that made ordinary people lower their voices before they knew why. It rose 23 stories over downtown Latham, all smoked glass, gold trim, and polished stone that reflected headlights like water. At night, the entrance glowed beneath a canopy of white lights, where valets opened doors for men who never looked at them, and women who stepped out carefully so cameras could catch diamonds before the smile. That Saturday evening, the ballroom on the second floor had been transformed into a temple of generosity. At least, that was what the invitation said. Crystal chandeliers hung over round tables dressed in white linen. Champagne moved through the room on silver trays. A string quartet played near the marble columns, soft enough to sound expensive and quiet enough not to interrupt the business beneath it. Cameras flashed near a sponsor wall covered in logos, each one printed larger according to the donation. At the center of that wall, in raised blue letters, was Sterling Trust Bank. Nobody said the name without a little respect in it. Sterling Trust had paid for the gala. Sterling Trust had underwritten the children's hospital wing the gala was supposedly celebrating. Sterling Trust had helped finance the new Civic Center, 3 downtown restorations, and half the campaign promises being repeated near the Shrimp Tower. The mayor stood near the front, laughing too loudly at a joke from a real estate developer. A state senator posed with a pediatric surgeon and made sure the photographer caught his good side. 2 city councilmen shook hands with donors they had privately complained about that afternoon. Everyone was raising money for sick children, but half the room was also raising its own value. That was how charity worked at the Carlton Grand. Kindness arrived wearing cufflinks. Mercy came with a press release. The poor were mentioned from the stage, but they were not expected to walk through the front doors. Security lined the edges of the room in dark suits and earpieces, watching trays, exits, auction tables, and anyone who looked like they might not belong. A few uniformed officers stood near the hallway, hired off duty to make the wealthy feel protected from the city they claimed to be saving. They watched the wrong things. They watched shoes, watches, skin, posture, the difference between confidence and permission. Near the silent auction, a glass case held weekend trips, signed jerseys, diamond earrings, and a promise from a banker to fund a youth scholarship. Guests drifted past with polite smiles, pretending not to calculate who had bid against whom. A banker joked that naming rights always helped loosen a conscience. Everyone laughed softly. No one called it ugly. Outside the ballroom, downtown Latham was cold and wet under November rain. People stood 3 blocks away at a shelter with paper cups of soup, while inside the Carlton Grand, 1 bottle of champagne cost more than a week of groceries. The gala did not ignore that contrast. It depended on it. Suffering gave the evening purpose. Luxury gave it photographs. By 8 o'clock, the room was full enough to feel important and shallow enough to feel dangerous. Politicians worked the crowd. Donors measured one another. Reporters hunted for clean quotes. Officers scanned for trouble. And in a room built on appearance, one man in uniform was about to decide that one guest looked too successful to be innocent. Officer Victor Hale had spent 16 years wearing a city badge, and somewhere along the way, the badge stopped being a duty and became permission. He was 48, thick around the waist, with a square face, close-cropped hair, and a neck that flushed red whenever someone made him feel small. His formal security uniform fit badly, not because the hotel had given him the wrong size, but because Victor had never accepted that time had changed his body. The jacket strained across his stomach. The collar pressed into the skin under his jaw. Sweat gathered beneath the black bow tie he hated, but wore because the gala paid well. Victor was not supposed to be the star of the Carlton Grand that night. He was supposed to stand near the ballroom doors, check credentials, watch exits, and keep donors comfortable. But men like Victor did not like being background. They did not like watching people with money glide past them as if he were furniture. He hated the easy way wealthy men ignored him. He hated the way wealthy women looked through him. But what he hated most was seeing someone he had already judged as beneath him move through those rooms like they belonged. That was the wound he carried into every shift. Not crime, not danger, not public safety. Resentment. Victor Hale had spent years guarding places that would never invite him inside. Fundraisers, corporate luncheons, private receptions, courthouse banquets where judges laughed with developers and called it community leadership. He stood at the edges of power with a radio on his shoulder and bitterness in his mouth. Out there, he decided who belonged. That was what he told himself. Out there, on the sidewalk, near the entrance, by the velvet ropes, he could stop a person, question a person, humiliate a person, and call it procedure. If someone pushed back, he had language for that too. Suspicious behavior, failure to comply, creating a disturbance. Victor knew the phrases. He had polished them for years until they sounded official enough to hide what he really meant. He did not hate rich people exactly. He envied them. Then he hated anyone who looked rich in a way that offended his story about the world. A white banker in a tuxedo was successful. A black woman in a designer gown was suspicious. A drunk donor with a red face was having fun. A young black man laughing too loud near the bar was a potential problem. A senator's wife touching a diamond necklace was elegant. A woman with dark skin wearing a serious watch was, in Victor's mind, asking for questions. Bias had become instinct. Class jealousy had become suspicion. And suspicion, when carried by a man with a badge, could ruin a life before dessert was served. The hotel managers knew Victor was rough. They used softer words, firm, old school, no nonsense. They liked officers who made wealthy guests feel protected, and they never asked too closely who needed protection from whom. Victor was reliable in the way a locked gate was reliable. He kept certain people out. He made others think twice. He understood the unspoken rules of rooms like the Carlton Grand. Smile at donors, nod at politicians. Do not bother men with cufflinks. Watch everyone else. By 8:15, Victor stood near the sponsor wall, pretending to scan the crowd while actually measuring it. His eyes moved from shoes to jewelry to wristbands to skin. He did not look for danger. He looked for mismatch. Then a flash of silver caught the chandelier light near the center tables. Victor turned his head and saw her. Amara Whitfield stood near the center tables, not because she had fought for that place, but because people kept making room for her without realizing they were doing it. She was in her early 40s, tall, composed, with deep brown skin and the kind of stillness that made noise move around her. Her dress was black, simple, and cut with the quiet confidence of something made for her and no one else. No sequins, no feathers, no desperate sparkle. Just clean lines, bare shoulders, and a silk wrap folded over one arm. She did not enter the ballroom like she needed to be seen. That was what made people look. At her wrist was the watch, white gold, diamond bezel, mother-of-pearl face. Rare enough that 3 men in the room would have recognized it instantly if they had seen it on one of their golf partners. On Amara, Victor Hale saw it as a mistake in the universe. It caught the chandelier light when she reached for a glass of water, not champagne, and the flash of it cut straight into the part of him that confused wealth with permission. Amara did not notice him staring, or if she did not reward it. Beside her stood a young woman named Talia Price, her assistant, carrying a slim leather folder and trying not to look overwhelmed by the room. Talia was 26, sharp, nervous, and good at hiding it until someone important walked too close. Amara noticed anyway. "You're doing fine," Amara said quietly. Talia exhaled. "I haven't done anything yet." That's usually when people do their best work. Talia smiled, just a little. A waiter approached with a tray of tiny crab cakes arranged like the kitchen had used tweezers and anxiety. Several guests grabbed without looking at him. One woman left a used napkin on his tray like he was a walking trash can. Amara waited until he turned to her. "Thank you," she said. The waiter blinked, then nodded. "Of course, ma'am." She took one piece, then shifted the tray slightly, so Talia could reach without leaning awkwardly. It was nothing, a small thing. But small things reveal people faster than speeches do. At the donor table, a hospital board member was telling a story about children he had never met. Amara listened like every word mattered, even though her eyes sharpened when the man said underserved communities with the tone of someone discussing a stain on expensive carpet. She did not interrupt. She did not embarrass him. She simply asked one question afterward about how much of the money would go directly to patient care. The man stumbled. Amara waited, not cruelly, precisely. Near the auction wall, a city councilwoman waved her over with the bright smile of someone trying to remember whether they had met before. "Miss Whitfield, I'm so glad you made it. We have you at table 3, I believe." "That's kind of you," Amara said. "Talia has the seating card." Talia opened the leather folder, but Amara touched her arm gently. "No rush." Inside that folder was more than a seating card. There was a cream-colored, very important person invitation with the Carlton Grand crest pressed into the paper. A printed schedule listed the evening's speakers, though one line near the bottom had been left vague on purpose. Special remarks from principal sponsor representative. Beneath that was a sealed envelope from Sterling Trust Bank and a black metal card with no visible number, only a raised silver emblem and Amara's name. She had not shown it to anyone. She had not needed to. Amara moved through the gala without the hunger most people brought into rooms like that. She did not chase the mayor. She did not angle for cameras. She did not laugh too loudly near reporters or lean into conversations just because a senator was standing inside them. When someone spoke, she listened. When someone was ignored, she noticed. When staff passed by, she made space. That was her luxury, not the watch, the ease, the refusal to beg a room for recognition. And across the ballroom, Victor Hale watched all of it with his jaw tightening, because nothing offended him more than a black woman who looked like she had never needed his approval. The flash came again when Amara signed the pledge card. It was not dramatic, just a small cut of light from the chandelier, sliding across white gold and diamonds as her pen moved over the thick paper. The watch sat low on her wrist, elegant and quiet, the kind of piece that did not scream money because it had never needed to. Victor Hale saw it anyway. He had been pretending to watch the hallway doors, but his eyes kept returning to her table. First to the dress, then to the posture, then to the watch, especially the watch. He knew enough about expensive things to resent them. Not enough to understand craftsmanship, not enough to know history, but enough to recognize that the little flash on Amara Whitfield's wrist cost more than his cruiser, more than his mortgage balance, more than the yearly salary he complained about whenever a bartender acted too busy to hear him. His jaw tightened. There were men in that room wearing watches that could buy a house in the cheaper part of Latham. Victor had seen them all night. Gold faces, crocodile straps, limited editions bought after bonus season, and divorce settlements. He had not questioned those men. He had not asked where they got their money. He had not imagined them slipping into locker rooms or stealing from coat checks. On them, luxury looked natural. On Amara, Victor decided it looked suspicious. That was how his mind worked. It did not arrive at prejudice like a conclusion. It started there, then built a case around it. He watched her thank the event volunteer who placed the donation card in front of her. He watched her lean slightly toward Talia and say something that made the young assistant relax. He watched the hospital board member laugh too loudly beside her, desperate now, trying to recover from the question she had asked about patient care. Amara did not humiliate him. She only signed the pledge card, capped the pen, and returned it with a calm smile. The watch flashed. Victor felt it like an insult. What kind of woman wore something like that without trying to show it off? What kind of person walked into a room full of donors without orbiting the biggest names there? What kind of black woman sat at a central table, spoke softly, and somehow made councilmen stand straighter when she looked at them? The answer was simple. One Victor refused to consider, so he made up another one. Maybe it was fake. Maybe stolen. Maybe borrowed from some wealthy employer. Maybe lifted from a hotel suite upstairs, while the real owner was down here drinking champagne. Maybe she had some story ready. They always had stories, he thought. Everybody had a story when they got caught. He had not caught her doing anything. That did not matter. Boredom was dangerous for men like Victor Hale, but envy was worse. Envy needed proof after it had already passed judgment. It needed a reason. It needed a badge, a hallway, a public setting, and a person calm enough to be called arrogant. He shifted his weight near the sponsor wall. His collar dug into his neck. The ballroom felt too warm now, too full of perfume, money, and people who would never remember his name. A developer brushed past him without saying excuse me. A senator's aide handed him an empty glass like he worked catering. Victor took it before he realized what had happened. That made the heat rise behind his ears. Then he looked back at Amara. She was lifting her water glass now. Not champagne, water. Her wrist turned slightly, and the watch caught every chandelier in the ceiling. For one clean second, it seemed to hold the whole room inside it. The donors, the music, the marble, the sponsor wall, the life Victor watched from the edge and could not enter without a uniform. Something in him hardened. It was not about a watch anymore. It was about making the room remember he had power too. He touched the badge clipped near his waist, just lightly, the way some men touch a weapon before deciding whether to use it. Then he straightened his jacket, swallowed the bitterness in his throat, and began walking toward Amara Whitfield's table. He had found his reason. Victor Hale approached Amara Whitfield's table with the careful steps of a man pretending he was not already angry. He smiled before he spoke. That was the first warning. It was the kind of smile officers like him used when they wanted witnesses to hear politeness and targets to feel threat. Wide enough for the room, cold enough for the person in front of him. His hand rested near the badge clipped to his waist, not touching it this time, just making sure everyone knew it was there. "Evening, ma'am," Hale said. Amara looked up from the pledge card. "Good evening, officer." Her voice was calm, not sweet, not defensive, just calm. That bothered him immediately. Talia glanced between them, the folder still tucked against her chest. The hospital board member beside Amara suddenly found something fascinating in the bottom of his wine glass. Across the table, a real estate developer paused mid-sentence, heard enough to understand trouble was forming, and then turned his head as if the floral centerpiece required deep study. People at Gala's had a special talent for not noticing things, especially things that might cost them comfort. Hale looked at the seating card beside Amara's plate, then at Talia, then back at Amara. "Mind if I ask what table you're assigned to?" Amara's expression did not change. "This one. You sure about that?" "Yes." Hale gave a short laugh, soft enough to sound professional from 10 feet away. "Only asking because this is a reserved donor section." "I understand. Not general admission." "I understand that, too." A woman 2 seats away shifted in her chair but did not look up. Her husband touched her wrist beneath the table, a quiet signal. "Not now. Not us." Hale leaned slightly closer. "Do you have your invitation with you?" Talia started to open the folder. Amara lifted one hand, gentle but clear. "It's not necessary, Talia." Hale's eyes sharpened. "Actually, ma'am, it might be." Amara turned fully toward him now. "Officer, I checked in at the front desk. My name is on the list. I was escorted to this table by event staff. Names get mixed up. I'm sure they do. People walk into events like this all the time. I'm sure they try." He did not like that answer. It agreed without shrinking. It gave him nothing to grab except the fact that she was not afraid. Hale straightened, letting his voice carry just a little more. Not a shout. Not yet. Just enough for the nearest tables to feel the temperature change. "I'm going to need to see some identification." Amara set the pen down beside the pledge card. Slow, deliberate. For what purpose? For verification. Verification of what? That you're supposed to be here. The string quartet kept playing, but the violinist near the front missed a note. Tiny. Almost invisible. But Amara heard it. So did Hale. He liked it. A disturbance meant he was becoming the center of the room. Amara folded her hands in her lap. The watch rested against her wrist, catching the soft gold light. "Officer, as I said, I am a guest at this event. If there is a concern, you may speak with the Gala director." "I'm speaking with you, and I'm answering you." Hale's mouth tightened. Talia found her voice. "Sir, I have the invitation right here if you need it." Hale turned his eyes to her. "Did I ask you?" Talia froze. Amara looked at him then, not sharply. Worse. Patiently. Like she had just learned something unfortunate about him and was deciding how little of herself to spend on it. "Please don't speak to her that way," Amara said. A quiet sentence. A clean line. Hale stepped over it. "I'll speak however I need to speak while I'm doing my job." "What job is that?" The question was not loud. It did not need to be. Around them, the fake conversations grew thinner. Forks slowed. Glasses hovered near lips. The mayor, 20 feet away, looked once in their direction, recognized Victor Hale, recognized discomfort, and chose a donor in the opposite corner. Hale smiled again. This time, the mask slipped at the edges. "You seem pretty comfortable for someone being asked a simple question." "I am comfortable because I have done nothing wrong." That's usually what people say. What people? The room caught that one. Hale did too. His neck reddened above the collar. He glanced down at the table, at the pledge card, at the black folder, at Amara's steady hands. Then his eyes landed on the watch. The diamond bezel flashed once beneath the chandelier, and just like that, verification was no longer enough. Hale let his gaze stay on the watch long enough for everyone at the table to understand that the conversation had changed. Amara understood first. Talia understood a second later, and her fingers tightened around the leather folder. Hale pointed with 2 fingers, not quite touching Amara's wrist. "That's an expensive piece." Amara did not look down. "It is. You bring that with you tonight." "I'm wearing it, officer." "That's not what I asked." The hospital board member shifted in his chair. The woman beside him lowered her eyes to her salad plate like the arugula had suddenly become urgent. 2 tables over, the mayor's laugh died halfway out of his throat, then restarted in a weaker version. Hale heard the room thinning around him. He liked it. A crowd made humiliation more useful. "Is the watch yours?" he asked. The violin near the front slid slightly off note again. This time, the cellist looked over. A waiter stopped with a tray of champagne still balanced in one hand. Behind Amara, a photographer lowered his camera, not yet brave enough to lift it toward the scene. Amara's expression remained still. "Yes. You have proof of that. Proof that my watch belongs to me." "That's right." "No," she said. "I don't carry ownership papers for jewelry on my wrist." A few people heard it and almost smiled. Almost. Hale's face tightened. "You think this is funny? I think it's unusual." "What's unusual is someone showing up here with a watch like that and getting defensive when security asks a simple question." "I am not defensive." "You're refusing to cooperate." "I'm refusing to be treated like a suspect without cause." That landed clean. Too clean. Hale leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to make it more dangerous. "We've had reports of missing valuables at events like this." Amara held his stare. "At this event?" "I said events like this." "So not this event." Talia looked at Amara, then at Hale. "Officer, this is really unnecessary." Hale did not take his eyes off Amara. "Young lady, one more word and I'll ask you to leave too." Talia went silent, but her face flushed with anger. Amara's voice cooled. "Do not threaten my assistant." "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm investigating." "Then state the basis of your investigation." Hale gave a short laugh. "The basis is that I'm looking at a very expensive watch, and you're acting like you don't want anyone asking about it." "I'm acting like a guest being interrupted at a charity dinner." "Guests don't get special treatment from me." "No," Amara said. "Only certain guests get suspicion." The table froze. The words were not loud. They were not emotional. That made them worse for Hale. They exposed the shape of what he was doing without raising the temperature by a single degree. Across the ballroom, a glass stopped halfway to a donor's lips. The string quartet kept playing, but softer now, like even the music was trying not to be noticed. The sponsor wall stood behind them, Sterling Trust Bank shining in blue letters above the heads of people who were suddenly very busy, pretending they were not witnesses. Hale's neck darkened. "You need to watch your tone." "My tone is controlled." "That's your problem." "My problem," Amara said, "is that an off-duty officer has approached my table, questioned my invitation, threatened my assistant, and is now demanding proof that I own the watch I'm wearing." Hale smiled. It was thin and ugly. That was a pretty rehearsed little speech. It was a summary. No, it was attitude. There it was. The word men like Hale used when a calm person refused to lower their head. Attitude. It let him turn dignity into defiance. It let him call a boundary aggression. It let him rewrite a quiet woman into a problem the room could understand without admitting what it was really watching. Amara unfolded her hands. The watch caught the light again, soft and sharp at the same time. Hale's eyes followed it. He could not help himself. "Maybe you should take it off," he said. The waiter with the champagne tray finally set it down on the nearest table. One glass trembled against another. Amara looked at Hale for a long moment. No, the word was small. The room heard it anyway. Hale straightened, satisfaction and anger mixing in his face. He had wanted a refusal. He needed one. Refusal gave him shape. Refusal let him escalate. He reached toward the radio at his shoulder, then stopped, making sure enough people were watching. "Then we're going to have a problem," he said. And for the first time that night, the Gala stopped pretending nothing was happening. Hale let the word problem sit between them like a weapon on the table. Amara did not move. That bothered him more than if she had shouted. Shouting would have made sense to him. Tears would have made him comfortable. A trembling hand, a nervous apology, a quick surrender of the watch, all of that would have placed the room back into the shape Victor Hale understood. But Amara only looked at him. Calm, measured, unmoved. Hale reached into the small pouch clipped to his belt and pulled out a clear plastic evidence bag. It was the kind officers carried for actual crime scenes. Drugs, shell casings, stolen cash. Things that had been seized because the law had a reason to take them. He snapped it open with his fingers. The sound was tiny. The insult was not. "Remove the watch," he said. Talia's face went pale. "You can't be serious." Hale pointed at her without looking. "I warned you." Amara's eyes moved to the bag, then back to him. "Officer, you have no legal basis to seize my property. I have reasonable suspicion." "Based on what?" "Potential stolen property." The phrase made several people around the table look up. Potential stolen property. Just like that, the watch had been turned from an heirloom into evidence. The woman wearing it had been turned from a guest into a suspect. No report, no victim, no missing item, no description from security. Just Victor Hale, his jealousy, and a plastic bag he now held like a court order. Amara's voice remained steady. "Who reported it stolen?" Hale smiled. "You don't get to question my investigation. I'm questioning your authority to take what belongs to me. That attitude is exactly why we're here." "No," Amara said. "Your assumption is why we're here." A low murmur moved through the nearest tables, then died quickly when Hale turned his head. He liked that too. Fear still worked. "Ma'am," he said, louder now, "you can either remove the watch voluntarily, or I can escort you out of this ballroom and handle it in the lobby." Talia stepped closer to Amara. "This is harassment." Hale's hand dropped toward the cuffs on his belt. "Or we can do it another way." The cuffs. That was when the room changed. A woman near the auction wall quietly lowered her phone from her ear. A donor set his champagne glass down too hard, and the stem clicked against marble. The string quartet faltered, then kept playing with the brittle discipline of people paid not to react. Amara looked at the cuffs, then at Hale. "You are threatening to arrest me because I will not hand over my watch without cause. I'm giving you options. You're manufacturing compliance." That was too much truth in too few words. Hale's face hardened. "Stand up." Before Amara could answer, a man in a black suit hurried over from the side entrance. He was the Gala floor manager, Daniel Ross, thin, anxious, and sweating through a shirt that cost more than he wanted it to. He had spent the entire evening solving disasters with smiles, wrong table cards, cold salmon, a donor angry about being seated near an ex-wife. This was different. "Officer Hale," Daniel said softly, "maybe we can step aside and speak with the Gala director. I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding." Hale turned on him. "Are you interfering with police business?" Daniel swallowed. "No, sir. I'm just saying Miss Whitfield is an invited guest and this is a donor event. And you want me to ignore possible theft at your donor event?" "No, of course not." "Then back up before I shut this whole bar service down and have the fire marshal look at every exit in this ballroom." Daniel froze. Hale stepped closer. "You want your permits reviewed tonight." Daniel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "Then move." Daniel moved. That was how men like Hale won. Not by being right, by making the price of correction too high and collecting silence like proof. Amara watched Daniel retreat, and something in her expression changed. Not fear, not anger, disappointment. The quiet kind that hurt more because it expected nothing and was still let down. Slowly, she reached toward the clasp on the watch. Talia whispered, "Miss Whitfield, don't." Amara did not look away from Hale. "It's all right." "It's not." "No," Amara said. "It isn't." Her fingers found the clasp beneath her wrist. The diamonds caught the chandelier one last time. For a second, the watch held the whole ballroom inside it again. The money, the music, the white linens, the fake charity smiles, the officer who thought power meant taking something from a woman until she looked smaller. Click. The clasp opened. The watch loosened. Amara lifted it from her wrist with the care of someone handling memory, not jewelry. There was a faint pale line where it had rested against her skin. Hale held out the evidence bag. She did not drop it in. She placed it inside slowly, so everyone could see exactly what was being taken. Hale sealed the bag with a satisfied press of his thumb. To him, it looked like control. To everyone else, it looked like theft with a badge standing beside it. For a few seconds after Hale sealed the evidence bag, the Carlton Grand Ballroom became a room full of people pretending not to understand what they had just seen. That was the ugliest part. Not the plastic bag, not the badge, not even the smug look on Hale's face as he held Amara Whitfield's watch between two fingers like he had recovered stolen property from a street corner. It was the silence. The room had money. It did not have courage yet. At table 7, a venture capitalist shifted in his chair and whispered something to his wife without moving his lips. She looked at Amara, then at the bag, then down at her plate. Her own diamond bracelet glittered under the chandelier. Nobody asked her where she got it. Near the sponsor wall, a city councilman stepped out of the line of sight of a photographer. Not quickly, not obviously. Just one small move to the left, the kind of movement men make when they want history to forget where they were standing. The mayor took his phone out and pretended to read a message. A state senator turned his back and began laughing too loudly at a joke nobody had finished. That was how power protected itself in rooms like this. Not always with speeches. Sometimes with silence, posture, and the sudden discovery of an urgent conversation somewhere else. Hale looked around and saw nobody challenging him. He mistook that for approval. Amara saw the same thing and understood it correctly. Fear, convenience, cowardice in evening wear. Talia stood beside her, breathing hard through her nose, trying not to cry from anger. The empty place on Amara's wrist looked louder than the watch had ever looked. A pale band of skin, exposed beneath the ballroom light. It should not have mattered. It was just a wrist. But everyone knew something had been taken from her in public. And it was not only the watch. A young waiter named Miles stood near the champagne table, still holding an empty tray against his chest. He was 19, maybe 20, working his second month at the hotel and hoping nobody noticed how badly his shoes hurt. He had watched rich guests ignore him all night. He had watched Amara thank him earlier when he passed water around her table. Now he watched Hale take from her, and his face tightened. He wanted to speak. He did not. He needed the job. Beside the auction display, a nurse from the Children's Hospital Committee lowered her program slowly. Her name was Evelyn Grant. She had come straight from a 12-hour shift, swapped scrubs for a borrowed blue dress, and spent the evening smiling for donors who called sick children inspiring, because they had never held one while a mother cried in the hallway. Evelyn knew what power looked like when it got mean. She saw it now. Her fingers curled around the program until the paper bent. Still, she said nothing. Not yet. At the back of the room, a small business owner named Carl Mendez stood beside the silent auction table. He owned 2 grocery stores on the east side and had given $5,000 that night, which was nothing to the men near the front, but everything to him. He had borrowed from banks, been denied by banks, begged banks, hated banks, survived banks. He knew what it meant when someone made a decision about you before you opened your mouth. He watched Amara stand there without her watch. His jaw worked once, but Hale still had a badge, and badges made good men calculate risk. Amara turned her wrist once, then lowered her hand to her side. Her face remained composed, but something colder had entered her eyes. "Officer Hale," she said. The sound of his name made him look back at her. "What?" "I want your full name, badge number, and the stated reason for the seizure." Hale blinked, almost offended that she was still speaking like the room belonged to her. "You don't get to make demands." "I'm not making a demand. I'm making a record." "A record?" Yes, that one word cut through him. A record meant later. It meant paper. It meant review. It meant the moment might outlive his version of it. Hale lifted the evidence bag slightly. "The stated reason is potential stolen property." "Potentially stolen from whom?" "That's under investigation." "By whom?" "By me." "Based on what report?" His mouth tightened. The ballroom listened harder. Hale hated the shift. He had taken the watch to make her smaller, but somehow she had turned the empty space on her wrist into an indictment. No raised voice, no tears, no begging, just questions, stacked neatly, each one exposing the rotten beam beneath his authority. "You keep pushing," he said, "and I'll add obstruction." "Obstruction of what?" "Police procedure. You are off duty, hired as event security, and you have not identified a complainant, a victim, or a matching theft report." A murmur moved through the room again. This time it did not die as quickly. Hale heard it. His face reddened. He looked at the guests, the staff, the cameras, the sponsor wall, all of it suddenly feeling less like a stage and more like a trap. So he did what small men do when calm truth corners them. He got louder. "Ma'am," Hale snapped, "you are not in charge here." Amara looked at the evidence bag in his hand, then at his badge, then back at his face. "No," she said quietly. "And that is exactly the problem." Talia moved when everyone was looking at Amara. Not fast. Fast would have made Hale notice. She backed away from the table with the leather folder hugged against her ribs, slipping between a waiter and a floral arrangement, tall enough to hide half her body. Her pulse beat so hard she could feel it in her throat. Behind her, Hale was still standing with the evidence bag in his hand, enjoying the silence he had created. "Step away from the table," Hale said to Amara. Amara looked at him. "For what reason?" "Because I said so." "That is not a reason. It is tonight." A few guests looked down again. Talia heard that and kept walking. She reached the side hallway behind the ballroom, then pushed through a black velvet curtain into the backstage service area. The world changed instantly. No chandeliers, no champagne, no cameras, just folding chairs, stacked tablecloths, coiled microphone cables, cases of bottled water, and hotel staff moving with the exhausted speed of people paid to make wealthy people feel effortless. Miles, the young waiter, saw her first. "Are you okay?" Talia opened the leather folder with shaking hands. "I need a phone." "You can use mine." "No, a landline. Something that won't drop." Miles pointed towards a small production desk near the back wall, where the event coordinator had left a phone, 2 clipboards, and a half-eaten granola bar. Talia crossed to it, pulled out the very important person invitation, and found the number printed beneath the Sterling Trust Bank seal. "Executive event contact." She dialed. In the ballroom, Hale pointed toward the space beside the sponsor wall. "Stand over there," he said. Amara did not move. He lifted the evidence bag slightly. "You want to make this worse? I want my property documented properly. You don't tell me how to document evidence. Then document it correctly, without needing to be told." The words hit him in front of too many people. Hale's jaw flexed. "Move." Amara rose slowly from her chair. Not because he had defeated her, because she knew the room needed to see the full shape of him. She picked up her clutch, adjusted the silk wrap over her arm, and stepped away from the table with the controlled grace of a woman refusing to let humiliation choose her posture. He hated that. On the production desk backstage, the phone rang twice. Then a woman answered. "Sterling Trust Executive Office. This is Nadia Cole." Talia swallowed. "My name is Talia Price. I'm at the Carlton Grand Gala. I'm with Miss Amara Whitfield." There was a pause, tiny but real. "Is Miss Whitfield all right?" Talia looked through the gap in the curtain. Hale had positioned Amara near the sponsor wall, beneath the blue Sterling Trust logo, as if he were posing her for an arrest photo he had not earned. The empty place on her wrist looked naked under the lights. "No," Talia said. "An off-duty police officer just seized her watch." The line went quiet. "Not dead. Worse. Focused." "Say that again," Nadia said. "He took her watch. He called it potential stolen property. He said she looked suspicious. He threatened to remove her from the gala. He has it in an evidence bag." "What is the officer's name?" Talia looked toward the ballroom again. Hale had turned partly away, speaking loudly enough for the nearest tables. "We deal with this kind of thing all the time," he said. "People come into high-end events, flash something expensive, and hope nobody asks questions." Amara stood still. Her face was calm, but her eyes had gone cold. "Talia," Nadia said, voice sharper now. "The officer's name." "Victor Hale." Another pause. Then Nadia's tone changed completely. The polite office voice disappeared. What replaced it sounded like someone opening a locked room. "Do not hang up. Do not let that officer leave the building with Miss Whitfield's property. Do you understand me?" Talia gripped the phone harder. "Yes. Where is Miss Whitfield now?" In the ballroom. He made her stand by the sponsor wall. The Sterling Trust sponsor wall. Yes. Miles, standing beside her, whispered, "Oh, God." Nadia spoke away from the receiver, but Talia heard pieces. "Get Marcus. Call legal. Security team now. Tell Mr. Devereaux. No, the Gala, right now." Then Nadia came back. "Talia, listen carefully. Keep eyes on Miss Whitfield. If the officer tries to move her out of the ballroom, stall him. If he tries to leave with the watch, stop him if you can do it safely. Do not touch him. Do not argue alone. Get witnesses. Get video." Miles already had his phone out. Through the curtain, Hale stepped closer to Amara. "You know, most people cooperate when they have nothing to hide." Amara looked at the evidence bag. "Most people with authority know the difference between procedure and performance." The nearest guests heard it. So did Hale. His face reddened. Backstage, Talia whispered into the phone, "He's making it worse." Nadia's answer came low and hard. "Good. Let him." Outside the Carlton Grand, rain slid down the glass canopy. The valet captain looked up as the first black sport utility vehicle turned off the avenue. Then a second. Then a third. Their headlights swept across the wet stone entrance, clean and bright, moving toward a man in a ballroom who still thought the night belonged to him. Miles was the first one to move. Not a senator. Not a donor with his name on a hospital plaque. Not a man in a tuxedo who could buy his way out of most consequences before breakfast. A waiter, 19 years old, black vest too tight across his shoulders, shoes aching, hands still damp from wiping down trays in the service hall. He stepped through the curtain with his phone low at his side, camera already recording. His face was nervous, but his feet kept moving. "Officer," Miles said. Hale turned toward him like he had heard a fly speak. "What?" Miles swallowed. "You should give her watch back." The room shifted, just slightly. One sentence had cracked something. Hale stared at him. "Excuse me, you don't have a report. She asked you for one. You didn't say." A few guests looked at Miles with the startled discomfort of people realizing the help had a voice. Hale took one step toward him. "You want to lose your job tonight." Miles's jaw tightened. His phone shook in his hand, but he did not lower it. "No, sir." "Then shut your mouth and get back to work." That should have ended it. In rooms like the Carlton Grand, it usually did. But Evelyn Grant stood next. The nurse from the Children's Hospital Committee rose from her chair near the auction table, blue dress wrinkled from sitting too long. Hospital identification still clipped inside her clutch because she had come straight from a shift where nobody cared about diamonds or donor walls. She looked exhausted. That made her voice stronger somehow. "He's right," Evelyn said. "You have no reason to treat her like this." Hale pointed at her. "Ma'am, sit down." "Number." The word was small. The room heard it anyway. Hale's eyes narrowed. "You people really want to turn a charity event into a police matter." Evelyn looked at Amara, then at the empty place on her wrist. "You already did that." That one landed. Somebody near the back whispered, "Damn." Hale heard it and spun toward the sound. Who said that? No one answered. Then Carl Mendez stepped away from the silent auction table. He was not rich by Carlton Grand standards. Not poor either. He owned 2 grocery stores on the east side, both built on loans, late nights, and the kind of credit denials that taught a man which bankers saw people and which bankers only saw risk. He had spent years being talked down to by men who wore watches more expensive than his delivery truck. He knew what was happening. He knew exactly what was happening. "Officer," Carl said, "I saw the whole thing. She didn't do anything. You targeted her." Hale laughed once, sharp and ugly. "Targeted her. Listen to yourself. I am. Maybe I ought to check your pockets, too." Carl's face tightened, but he stayed where he was. "Maybe you ought to return what you took." The murmur grew. Not loud, not brave yet, but alive. A local reporter named Dana Wells stood near the sponsor wall with a press badge hanging from her neck. She had come to cover a hospital fundraiser, take a few safe photos, write 800 words about civic generosity, and go home. Now her camera was pointed at Hale. Not down, not away, at him. Hale saw it. "You filming me?" Dana adjusted the focus. "This is a public charity event with credentialed press. This is an active investigation into a watch no one reported stolen." Hale's face flushed dark red above his collar. "One more person interferes, and I'll clear this room." You can't clear a private event because people are asking why you seized a guest's property, Dana said. I can remove anyone causing a disturbance. You are the disturbance, Evelyn said. The room tightened around those words. For the first time, Hale looked surrounded, not physically. No one touched him. No one stepped too close. But the silence he had been standing on began to give way beneath his feet. The waiter, the nurse, the grocer, the reporter. 4 people who did not arrive with the most money in the room had somehow found more courage than the people who did. Hale's hand moved toward his cuffs. Amara saw it. "Stop," she said. Everyone turned to her. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the way real authority does, not from volume, from command. "No one gets arrested over me," Amara said. Miles looked at her. "Ma'am, he's wrong." "I know. Then let us help." "You are helping," she said, by staying calm. Hale smirked, trying to grab back the moment. Finally, somebody understands how this works. Amara turned her head toward him. "No, Officer Hale," she said. "I understand exactly how this works. That is why I'm asking them not to give you the excuse you came here looking for." The smirk vanished. There it was, the truth, clean and public. Hale had wanted panic. He had wanted a raised voice. He had wanted someone to step too close, curse too loudly, reach too fast, anything he could fold into a report later and call resistance. Amara had taken that from him too. Dana's camera clicked, once, then again. Hale looked toward the ballroom doors, suddenly aware of the rain-dark hallway beyond them, the hotel security desk, the phones, the witnesses, the cameras, the sponsor wall shining over Amara's shoulder. Sterling Trust Bank. He still did not know. Not yet. But outside the Carlton Grand, 3 black sport utility vehicles had already reached the front entrance, and the valet captain was opening the first door with both hands. The ballroom doors opened before Hale could answer the reporter. Not all at once. First came the sound. Hard soles against marble in the hallway. Controlled. Fast. Not the wandering steps of late donors or hotel staff trying to disappear behind a tray. These steps had direction, purpose, money that did not need to beg for the room to move aside. Then the doors swung wide. Cold air from the lobby rolled into the ballroom, carrying rain, polished leather, and the sudden awareness that the night had changed owners. A man in a charcoal suit entered first, tall, clean-shaven, with silver at his temples, and a face built for boardrooms where bad news got delivered quietly. Behind him came a woman in a navy suit, carrying a leather portfolio like it held a loaded weapon. 2 security men followed, not hotel security, not rented muscle, but the kind of private protection that scanned exits before they scanned faces. A city liaison hurried behind them, already pale. 2 photographers and a local television reporter slipped in at the edge, confused at first, then instantly awake when they saw the crowd frozen around Officer Victor Hale. The string quartet stopped playing. 1 violin note hung in the air and died there. Hale turned toward the doors, evidence bag still in his hand. "This area is under control." No one answered him. They were looking past him, at Amara. The man in the charcoal suit crossed the ballroom with the quiet speed of someone who had never needed to raise his voice to end a meeting. Guests parted instinctively. Donors stepped back. The mayor straightened, then went pale enough that the photographer beside him lowered his camera just to stare. Because the man walking in was Marcus Devereaux, Chief Executive Officer of Sterling Trust Bank. Every politician in that room knew his name. Most of them had asked him for something. Marcus reached Amara and stopped in front of her. He did not look at the evidence bag first. He looked at her bare wrist, then her face. "Chairwoman Whitfield," he said, voice low. "Are you hurt?" The room went silent in a new way. Not uncomfortable now, terrified. "Chairwoman." Amara took a breath. "I'm not hurt, Marcus." The woman in the navy suit stepped beside him. "Miss Amara Whitfield, majority owner and chairwoman of Sterling Trust Bank. I need to ask if Officer Hale touched you." Someone gasped near table 4. The mayor's mouth opened. No sound came out. Hale blinked once, then twice, like his mind had rejected the sentence and was trying to reload it. Majority owner, chairwoman, Sterling Trust Bank. The blue logo on the sponsor wall suddenly seemed to lean over him, the same logo he had forced Amara to stand beneath like a suspect. The same logo printed on every dinner program, every donation card, every press backdrop, every polite speech about generosity and community. He had not humiliated a woman trying to sneak into a gala. He had humiliated the woman whose bank had paid for the room. Marcus finally turned to Hale. His eyes dropped to the evidence bag. The watch rested inside it, sealed beneath Hale's thumbprint, flashing under plastic like a witness waiting its turn. "Is that Chairwoman Whitfield's watch?" Marcus asked. Hale tightened his grip. "This is part of an investigation." The woman in navy opened her portfolio. "I'm Cassandra Bell, General Counsel for Sterling Trust Bank. You will state the legal basis for that seizure right now." Hale tried to puff himself up, but the room had already seen the air leave him. "She refused to cooperate," he said. "With what?" Cassandra asked. "With verification." "Verification of what?" Hale looked around. Too many eyes, too many phones, too many cameras that were not pointed away anymore. "That she belonged here," he said. The words came out smaller than he wanted. Marcus looked at the sponsor wall, then back at Hale. "She owns the bank sponsoring this gala." A chair scraped somewhere in the room. Dana Wells lifted her camera. Click. Hale's face flushed deep red. "Money doesn't put her above the law." "No one said it did," Cassandra replied. "But the law does not give you permission to invent suspicion because a black woman wore a watch you decided she should not have." That landed hard. Hale's jaw flexed. "I don't care what bank she owns. I saw potential stolen property and I acted." Marcus stared at him with something colder than anger. "Potentially stolen from whom?" "That's under review." "By whom?" "By me." The room felt the ridiculousness before anyone spoke it. Even the donors who had stayed silent earlier looked down now, not out of fear, but shame. The councilman who had stepped away from the scene suddenly found himself boxed in by cameras. The mayor adjusted his tie with fingers that did not work right. Amara stood between all of them, still calm, still without the watch, somehow more powerful in the absence of it. Marcus turned slightly toward her. His voice softened. "Madam Chair, how would you like us to proceed?" "Madam Chair." The phrase moved through the room like a verdict. Hale heard it and finally understood the first layer of his mistake. Only the first, because he still did not know who else was on the way. Cassandra Bell did not raise her voice. She did not have to. She stepped beside Marcus Devereaux, opened the leather portfolio, and placed one printed sheet on the nearest table. It was not dramatic. It was organized. The kind of calm paperwork that destroyed careless men one page at a time. "This event is sponsored by Sterling Trust Bank," Cassandra said. "The hospital expansion fund receiving tonight's donations is administered through Sterling Trust Community Foundation. The downtown redevelopment loans referenced in the mayor's remarks were issued by Sterling Trust. The small business recovery program advertised in your lobby was capitalized by Sterling Trust." Her eyes moved to Hale. "And Miss Amara Whitfield is the majority owner and chairwoman of Sterling Trust Bank." The room absorbed it in layers. First, the donors understood, then the politicians, then the hotel staff, then Hale. The woman he had made stand beside the sponsor wall was not simply a guest. She was the financial spine behind the entire evening. The bank logo above her shoulder was not decoration. It was her institution. The checks being praised from the stage traced back to her board. The hospital wing, the scholarship fund, the downtown loans, the charity cameras, the speeches about opportunity. All of it carried Amara Whitfield's authority. Hale stared at her like the facts had insulted him personally. Amara said nothing. That made it worse. Marcus turned towards the evidence bag. "That watch is not bank property. It is not Gala property. It is not listed in any theft report because there is no theft report." Cassandra's voice sharpened. It was a personal gift from Harold Whitfield, Miss Whitfield's father, founder of Sterling Trust Bank. At that name, several older guests shifted. They knew Harold Whitfield. Some had praised him at luncheons after refusing to sit beside him years earlier. Some had borrowed from him when other banks collapsed. Some had watched him build Sterling Trust from a two-room office after larger institutions denied him credit, partnerships, and respect. Then came asking for financing when his bank outperformed theirs. Harold Whitfield had started with nothing but numbers, discipline, and a refusal to confuse exclusion with defeat. The watch had been his gift to Amara when she became chairwoman, not because she needed proof of status, because he wanted her to remember the cost of every room she entered. Amara looked at the evidence bag. For the first time that night, something like grief moved through her eyes. Small, controlled, gone instantly. Hale missed it. The cameras did not. Dana Wells had moved closer, camera raised. Miles still recorded from near the service curtain. A donor at table 6 lifted his phone too. Soon, 3 angles of the same ugly scene were being reviewed on screens, held by people who had finally realized silence could become evidence against them. Marcus glanced at one of the phones. The footage showed Hale approaching Amara's table before any complaint. It showed him questioning her invitation. It showed him focusing on the watch. It showed him threatening Talia. It showed Daniel Ross trying to intervene and being intimidated with permit threats. It showed Amara asking for a legal basis. It showed Hale providing none. It showed the truth, not the truth Hale planned to write. The truth everyone saw. Cassandra turned to the city liaison. Is there any active report of a stolen watch matching this description? The liaison checked his phone with trembling thumbs. No, he said. No report has been entered. Cassandra looked back at Hale. Then you seized private property from the chairwoman of this institution without a complainant, without a matching report, without probable cause and in front of witnesses. Hale's grip tightened on the bag. I was protecting the property of wealthy guests. A strange sound moved through the room, not laughter. Disbelief. Amara finally spoke. By taking mine. Hale's face twisted. The line of control he had been clinging to snapped. He looked at Amara, Marcus, Cassandra, the phones, the mayor who now wanted to become furniture, and he chose the one thing men like him always choose when humility might still save them. He doubled down. I don't care what bank she owns, Hale said. People like her still need to be searched. The air left the room. Even the cameras seemed to freeze for half a second, as if the sentence itself needed time. Cassandra's expression changed first. Not shock, satisfaction, because Hale had done what no lawyer could force him to do. He had said the quiet part into a room full of witnesses. Marcus looked at Amara. Amara looked at Hale. No anger crossed her face now, no hurt, no surprise, just recognition, the kind given to a man who had finally removed the mask and called it procedure. Chief Raymond Doyle arrived 8 minutes after Hale said the sentence that ruined him. He came through the ballroom doors with 2 uniformed officers behind him and a face arranged for damage control. His eyes found Hale first, then the phones, then Amara Whitfield. That was when his expression changed. Hale stepped toward him like a drowning man seeing shore. Chief, I made a lawful seizure. These people are interfering with an investigation. Doyle lifted one hand. Everybody stay calm. It sounded official. It also sounded like a man buying time. Hale pointed at Amara. She refused to comply. Her assistant interfered. That reporter is recording police business. Dana Wells kept her camera up. Miles did too. Cassandra Bell held out a phone. Chief Doyle, before you say anything else, watch this, Hale snapped. That's edited. It's continuous, Dana said. Doyle took the phone. First came Hale questioning Amara's invitation, then his eyes dropping to the watch, then the demand, then the evidence bag, then Daniel Ross being threatened with permit reviews, then Amara asking for a legal basis, a complainant, a report, then Hale's voice, clear as a confession. People like her still need to be searched. Doyle's jaw stopped moving. No department statement could polish that. No incident report could bury it. Not with donors staring, cameras rolling, and the majority owner of Sterling Trust Bank standing under her sponsor wall without the watch he had taken. Doyle handed the phone back slowly. Officer Hale, he said. Hale straightened. Chief, return the property. Hale blinked. Sir, it's evidence. No, Doyle said. It is Miss Whitfield's property. Return it. The word hit harder than a shout. Hale looked at the evidence bag like it had betrayed him. The whole room watched him struggle with the simple act of giving back what he never should have taken. Cassandra stepped forward. Open the bag on camera. Dana's camera clicked. Hale tore the plastic seal. The sound was small and ugly. He removed the watch with 2 fingers, careful now. Then he placed it into Amara's open palm. She did not put it on. Not yet. She closed her fingers around it. Thank you. Not to Hale. To the record. Doyle turned to one officer. Collect Officer Hale's body cam and radio. Hale's face drained. Chief, come on. Badge 2. The ballroom went silent again. This silence was different. It had teeth. Hale gave a short, stunned laugh. You can't be serious. You are relieved from duty pending internal review, effective immediately. This is political, Hale said. You're letting bank money push the department around. Marcus Devereaux stepped closer. No. Evidence is pushing you. Doyle looked at Hale. Badge. For 16 years, Victor Hale had used that badge as a shortcut through other people's dignity. He had tapped it, flashed it, leaned on it, hidden behind it. Now he had to remove it in front of the room he tried to control. His fingers went to his waist. They shook. The metal clip resisted for one embarrassing second, then came loose. No one clapped. That made it worse. A uniformed officer took the badge, then the radio, then the body cam from Hale's chest. Each item made a soft, final sound as it changed hands. Authority being stripped did not roar. It clicked. Cassandra spoke into the silence. Sterling Trust Bank will preserve all footage and witness statements. We will request an independent civil rights investigation and prepare notice for civil action. Doyle nodded once. Understood. Marcus added, until that review is complete, Sterling Trust is pausing all discretionary sponsorship discussions with the city. The mayor looked like someone had removed the floor beneath him. Amara spoke. Chief Doyle, I do not want this handled quietly. Doyle turned to her. No, ma'am. I want the incident number, the names of every officer involved, the chain of custody on my property, and written confirmation that all footage will be preserved. Yes, ma'am. She looked at Hale then. No smile, no insult, just the calm dignity he had tried to steal and failed to touch. Hale was escorted toward the ballroom doors under the same chandeliers he had entered beneath, like a gatekeeper. Cameras followed him now. Guests moved out of his way, not from respect but shame. He had walked into the gala with a badge and a judgment. He left without the badge, and the judgment was on him. The gala did not restart all at once. It came back slowly, like a room learning how to breathe after holding its lungs too long. The chandeliers still burned. The white linen still covered the tables. The sponsor wall still stood at the front, blue letters shining over a ballroom that no longer trusted its own reflection. Champagne remained in glasses, untouched. Plates sat cooling beneath silver covers. The string quartet waited with bows lowered, unsure whether music would feel respectful or obscene. Outside the ballroom doors, Victor Hale disappeared down the marble hallway without his badge. Inside, Amara Whitfield stood exactly where he had tried to reduce her. Only now, everyone was looking at her differently. Not because she was powerful, because she had been powerful before they knew it, and that was the part that embarrassed them. Marcus Devereaux leaned close. We can end the program here, Madam Chair. Amara looked toward the hospital nurses, the young waiter near the curtain, Carl Mendez by the auction table, Dana Wells with her camera lowered now. Then she looked at the guests who had stayed silent when silence was easiest. No, she said. The children still need the wing. That sentence did what no announcement could. It separated her from the man who had tried to shame her. Hale had used power to make a room smaller. Amara used power to keep the purpose alive. Cassandra handed her the watch. The plastic bag was gone now. The evidence seal had been cut. The watch rested in Amara's palm, white gold and diamonds under the chandelier light, no longer just a beautiful object. It looked different, or maybe the room finally did. Amara fastened it back onto her wrist. The clasp clicked softly. That sound traveled. Not loud. Final. A few seconds later, Daniel Ross stepped to the microphone with a face still pale from fear. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could please take our seats for the next speaker. No one sat. Not yet, because Amara had started walking toward the stage. The first person to stand straighter was Miles, then Evelyn, then Carl. Then Dana lowered her camera completely and stepped back to make space. A hospital surgeon rose from his chair, then a donor, then a councilwoman, then table after table. People stood, some with shame on their faces, some with respect, some with both. By the time Amara reached the podium, the Carlton Grand was standing. She did not smile like she had won. She did not raise her hands like a celebrity. She only looked out over the ballroom and waited until the applause faded into something heavier than praise. Thank you, she said. 2 words. Steady. I came here tonight to support a hospital wing, not to become the story. So I will keep this brief. The room went still. My father built Sterling Trust Bank because he understood what it meant to be told no before anyone looked at the work. He was denied meetings, loans, partnerships, and respect. He used to say that power is not proven by the doors you can close. It is proven by the doors you choose to open. Amara glanced down at the watch on her wrist. He gave me this when I became chairwoman. Not because it was expensive, because he wanted me to remember time. The time people stole from him. The time he spent building anyway. The time every person in this city deserves to be seen before being judged. No one moved. Tonight was not about a watch. It was about dignity. It was about who gets questioned in rooms of privilege and who gets protected by silence. It was about what happens when authority forgets that its first responsibility is restraint. The mayor looked at the floor. Amara did not look at him. Sterling Trust will continue supporting this hospital fund because children should not pay for the failures of adults. But every partnership with this city will be reviewed, not as punishment, as responsibility. She stepped back from the microphone. Then, after a pause, she added one final line. True power does not need to humiliate anyone to prove it exists. The applause came slowly at first. Then it filled the room. Not the polished applause from earlier. Not the donor applause. This one sounded like people trying to repair something they had helped break. And somewhere beyond the lobby, Victor Hale walked into the rain without the badge he once thought made him untouchable. He had entered the Carlton Grand believing he could decide who belonged. He left as proof that abusers do not fall when someone shouts louder. They fall when truth walks into the room, and everyone finally sees them clearly. If you had been at that gala, maybe you would have felt the same fear most people felt at first. Maybe you would have looked around and wondered whether speaking up would cost too much. That is human. But this story reminds us that silence always has a price too. Sometimes kindness is not loud. Sometimes courage is just one calm sentence, one steady witness, one person choosing not to look away. We do not have to be powerful to protect someone's dignity. We only have to remember that every person we meet is more than what we assume about them. A watch, a dress, a job title, a badge, a bank logo, none of those things can measure a soul. What matters is how we use the power we are given, whether it is large or small. We can use it to embarrass, or we can use it to make a room safer. We can use it to close doors, or we can use it to open them for someone else. And when we make a mistake, the strongest thing we can do is not deny it, but face it, learn from it, and choose better the next time. Because real respect is not proven by who we can question, shame, or control. Real respect is proven by how carefully we treat people when we think no one important is watching.